One of my dad's favorite sayings was, "He who dies with the most toys wins." And I used to think he was nuts saying that. And here I am with a watch collection and I'm reviewing it on the channel. It's funny how, swings and roundabouts in life, right? But state of watch collections are fascinating. I've always found them interesting because they teach you a little bit more about the individual, a bit of insider knowledge about what they enjoy and what they collect. And when I think back to 2 years ago, my entire collection has changed, and for the better, for the worst, that's up to you to decide. But in today's video, we're going to run through my small collection and also unveil what's in that Rolex box. Let's have some fun. I think it needs to be said from the very beginning, and I don't know if most collectors say this often enough, but we should feel extremely privileged to have the collections that we have. No matter what the watches are, we are in a very fortunate position. It's been a very successful year for me, work-wise. As a collector, I have found some amazing pieces that I've been chasing for a very long time. Stumbled on some watches that I'm very grateful to now own. But then not taking it all for granted, I think, is such an important thing. You can equally enjoy the watches and have fun with them, and the pursuit of getting them is great, but to give them up, if they have to go, is another reality of life. And these watches could be with me now, today, and gone tomorrow. I don't know. But that's just the way things go. So the watches I regret selling, quite foolishly, 2 pieces. The Smith's W10. I had a beautiful W10 from 1969, and it was perfect. The case was gorgeous. The dial was excellent. It was such a great watch. But I ended up selling it because I just didn't feel like I was wearing it enough. And I don't think I'll ever get a watch of this kind of quality and condition again. Definitely a piece that when I see a photograph of it, I kick myself under the table and say, why? Why did you do that to yourself? And the second piece I regret letting go for funds, for the fact that I wasn't wearing it enough, was the Longines Navigation Big Eye. Why I let the Longines go was because I found another significant chronograph that was extremely well proportioned. The one downside to the Big Eye is its thickness is 15 millimeters, and that watch did feel top heavy on the wrist. And comfort of the watch on the wrist as a daily wearer is something I have definitely grown to appreciate over the last, 12, 24 months. The watches I enjoy collecting most are the originals. The ones that started it all for the brand. Not only great representations of the brand and where they were and their history, but the fact that these reissues are also modern and can be enjoyed day to day without any stress. So getting into my small collection, what I find really cool is that these watches all belong to a timeline. And we can track watches now from the early 1950s until the late 1980s, which is what we're going to do. So starting with number 1, the Tudor Black Bay 54. I've been fortunate enough to own and experience Black Bays in the past, but none have settled with me as well as this watch has. And I think it's down to the fact that this piece feels like that decade-long culmination of them finally understanding the proportions and the size of the Black Bay and paying tribute to that historic reference, the 7922, 7923. But they've also done it in such a correct way. The correct diameter, the correct bezel insert, the case profile being thin and it wears so nicely on the wrist. Things about the watch I really enjoy, the gilt dial and the counterbalance on the seconds hand. How this piece feels like a closer tribute to those earlier references, but still holds on to that modern Tudor snowflake handset in a way. And it's no harm in saying that this is my most worn watch of the year by far. You'll probably notice that all the straps I'm wearing on these watches are Omega NATO straps, which I find secondhand. I spend a lot of my time on eBay finding them packaged at a great discount. And I think what I enjoy about them the most is they have this durability. There's a great thickness to the texture that they use. So not only are they comfortable on the wrist, they're colorful, but they're also hard wearing. And they are so good to pair with watches no matter the brand. 1957, the first significant watch I ever bought, the most sentimental watch I own, the Omega Seamaster CK2913. It still kind of blows my mind that these pieces are not appreciated as much as they should be. This was the first Seamaster 300, and the fact that Omega made this watch a one-to-one recreation of that original, down to its thickness, down to the many different logos on the watch, I think there are about 5. The newest pair of shoes I bought for this watch is a No Time to Die Omega NATO strap that I found for an excellent price. And in a lot of ways, it's a piece that's perfect for me. The size is spot on, 39 millimeters in diameter. It's so open and legible, but there is a lot of detail on this matte dial. And it feels like that perfect in-between of being a vintage reissue watch that also doubles as quite a modern-looking piece for today. Why Omega hasn't continued to go down this route to recreate this watch in a more modern size and, to give it all the bells and whistles, it's beyond me. If I was only to keep one watch for the rest of my life, sentimentality, being my first watch, this would be it. 1965, the Seiko 62 MAS, the SJE093. Of all the happy accidents as a watch collector, this is the number one spot for me. Early Seiko designs I have always admired, and that SLA017 is a piece that's always been in the back of my mind, but I couldn't afford to get it years back. Seiko then announcing this 1-to-1 62 MAS, and the process of nonchalantly traipsing around trying to find one of these pieces somewhere, only to end up finding one and being the only bidder on that auction. To have the watch now, similar to my Seamaster 300, it represents what Seiko was doing in and around the 1960s, and how this watch represents the very origins of the Seiko dive watch. Fitted it to a 19mm mesh bracelet that I originally got for my Seamaster 300, and in my eyes it's the way of telling someone you're wearing a 1960s skin diver without telling someone you're wearing a 1960s skin diver. The attention to detail on the dial, the case finishing, this is grand Seiko quality. I've sung its praises in a review video that I'll link in the corner of the screen. I find it a real privilege to own and to wear. And ironically enough, not the most expensive watch in the collection by far, but it's also the rarest watch in the collection, which makes me laugh every time. 1969, the Zenith Primero A384. Another piece that I have admired ever since it was reissued. At the back of my mind saying an original Primero would be so great to own. And it just arrived on my radar one day. In all of its glory, 37mm, with all the chamfering, all the facets, the radial brushing on the case. What I love most about it is it's a watch that the majority probably wouldn't appreciate because it has a tonneau case, it looks kind of weird, feels like a prototype in a lot of ways. I've worn it the most on a beige NATO strap, which I think complements the plots very nicely. It does give it a 1970s feel. And I was also extremely fortunate to source an OEM deployant clasp for the piece, which I feel completes it a lot more. And when I think about it, it's probably the most special watch that I have found so far. These 4-digit Zeniths, they are something else. Monetary worth has nothing to do with it. It's what the piece represents. It's a cornerstone watch for the brand. It signifies what Zenith was like in the late 1960s, how this movement was so important for them, but also how the brand collapsed and was rekindled thanks to this movement, and how the brand is now stronger than ever. 1970s, 1972, 1974, the Pelagos FXD. So it's a watch that I have not worn as much as I should have this year because of the new additions to the collection, but every time I do wear it, and in the right situations, it's an incredibly hard watch to beat. I took it overseas with me for a week to Greece, and I could not have asked for a better dive watch. Putting this watch through its paces for hours in the ocean, the size, the legibility, its durability, how it wore on the wrist, and I just had such great fun with it, you know, it felt like a tool and it was in its prime environment. But then I also spent a lot of time this year doing odd jobs, restoring an old car in the garage, taking this watch to the gym and using it as a beater. In the right environment, for the context of work, this watch soars. And I could not say that about any other watch I have in the collection. They are so good, and it's my number one recommendation to all of you. Get one of these pieces for a bargain and enjoy them, especially in the harshest environments. I've paired this watch with a 22mm Omega Summer Blue NATO strap, and I think it adds a little bit more character, a little bit more excitement. Years on after owning it, it's too good. And I don't think I will ever stop singing its praises. Last but not least, 1989 until now, what's in the Rolex box? If you follow me on Instagram, you probably know already, but it's the Rolex Explorer. 36mm 124270. I realized halfway through the year that I was turning 30. If there's one thing to celebrate a significant milestone, as cliche as it might be, get a Rolex. So I lost my father over a year ago, and I was 28 at the time. I wanted this watch to signify the next chapter in my life, to be something truly special, not only this culmination of my 20s, but I said to myself, what's the one Rolex that you want to wear when you're 80 years old? And there was only one watch that I truly wanted, and it was the Explorer. It's a piece that I have debated so much. I've probably shared the most videos on this channel about, calling it perfect the one day, disliking it the next. You probably know that I've had a rocky history with this watch. Borrowed the 214270 for many months, and I could not get along with it. The release of this 36mm variant in 2021, it raised my eyebrows, and I thought, that looks brilliant, maybe. You never know. So about 5 months before my birthday, I found this. A 2023 example, had a few scratches on its clasp, and I thought that's brilliant because I can get it at a discount. If I ever felt the need, I could clean up the clasp myself. And for months, I just didn't wear it. I locked it away, forgot about it. Finally got around to my birthday, and it truly felt like a gift from my dad. As odd as it sounds, he would never be able to buy a watch like this for me. But it felt like it had been paid for. It felt like it had been taken care of, which is mind-blowing. Honestly, it's exquisite. It does everything I've ever wanted the Explorer to do. And the real thing to cap it off, which I love the most, is that this design started in 1989 with the 14270, just as the 1016 was discontinued. I was born in the early 90s. So this watch and its design has been around as long as I've been alive, right in that 30-year gap, which is even more astounding. I had never would imagine I would ever own a Rolex in my life. Honestly, been in this hobby for 10 years. So I feel very humbled and privileged to say that I now own a Rolex, and it's a watch that I would never let go of. Just like my Seamaster, these two watches, I mean, what else do you really need? What makes me laugh is that looking at these 6 watches, there is an outlier in this collection. I feel like there's one that doesn't need to be there, and it's the Black Bay 54. The problem with having an Explorer is that you can reduce the collection down now to the bare minimum because it does so much in such a small package. It's the watch I've been wearing the most over the last few months, go figure. I'll also be sure to cover this watch in depth with a hands-on review in a few months' time. Watch collecting is a fun hobby, especially ones, for me at least, that have a design and a history all to themselves. But to reach this point in my life as an enthusiast and to say, as a watch collector, I want for nothing, it's pretty special. These all do feel like achievements, and they've been so wonderful to experience, but the best watch is always the one on your wrist, no matter the brand, no matter the type of watch. And I'll just say it's so special that there's one person out there who's interested in my point of view, who's interested in what I talk about and what I share. It means so much, and I can't thank you enough for being a part of this journey and this hobby with me over the last however many years it's been. And I also don't think that next year and the year after that is going to be anything as significant as this year has been for me. I have to tone it back and slow down. It has been a wild ride, but I feel so incredibly fortunate for the experience. So thank you for taking the time to watch the State of the Collection video. See you in the next one.